So people traveled so that they can pay in Bitcoin.
We got like 20 businesses on Rainy Street accepting Bitcoin through the Oshi app. We had around 500 people, 500 or 600 people show up on like a Wednesday evening to like get out there and like pay with Bitcoin. I want people to earn it as easily as possible then, just with the transactions they already do. No coffee points, no miles, punch cards, stars. It's sats. Whenever customers make a purchase on, let's say, either their point of sale or their website, they immediately get Bitcoin rewards via email. In one hand, you're able to attract customers that maybe don't know much about Bitcoin, but would love to get free sats effectively for the first time ever. Like people will actually seek out these businesses that are offering Bitcoin rewards.
Medium of Exchange is sponsored by Polaris Payments. Let's face it, for now, businesses still need to accept fiat and credit cards. Polaris Payments helps with all your credit card processing needs using a consultative approach. Think of Polaris like a performance coach, helping take your business to the next level when it comes to accepting all forms of money. For more information about Polaris Payments, visit polarispayments.com. Now let's get back to the show.
Just to kick us off here, so really excited to welcome Michael Atwood to the Medium of Exchange podcast. Michael, you're the founder and CEO of Oshi, as well as the head organizer of the Awesome Bitcoin Club. So really excited for this conversation today to talk about Bitcoin and Bitcoin community, and of course, Bitcoin becoming that medium of exchange. So really just to start it out, I want to continue riffing on what we were just talking about of how your Bitcoin journey has evolved from speaking in Nashville to where you are today. You said things have changed for the better, and I would love for you to kind of expound upon that.
Oh man. Yeah, so where do I start? Man, that's a big question. So let me just take it piece by piece. Yeah, what we were discussing a bit is how, whenever I was kind of doing my speaking circuits, I guess you could call it, and going to different conferences and podcasts and everything. I was obviously very, very, very passionate about the Bitcoin circular economy, getting out there and spending your Bitcoin. And I still am, and I want that to come to fruition completely. But I also was humbled dramatically by like kind of how Oshi first began and what our focus on that was. We can get into that at some point, but ultimately, what I learned is I think from the medium of exchange, I think it's very worthwhile to like be accepting Bitcoin, to be paying with Bitcoin, and to keep driving that forward and kind of like shooting your best shot. But I do think, at least for me, like I said, it's going to take a bit longer than I initially thought. So, yeah, that's kind of my journey. I hadn't really spoken too much about it, actually. Um, not that I've just been keeping the information I learned to myself or anything, but I've just been putting it into the product that we built, just to kind of take a little one step back to try to meet people halfway a bit more. But yeah, that's kind of the gist of it.
So I guess in spirit of taking half a step back, or maybe a full step back, can you explain Oshi and the product that you're building and the company that you've been working on for the past however many years?
Yeah, absolutely. So I guess it'd be good to start with how it was initially founded. So initially, let's set the stage, right? It's like 2019, 2020. There were, uh, you know, uh, Bitcoin became legal tender in El Salvador. I don't know if what was that, May 2020 or maybe early 2021? Maybe it was 2021. Yeah.
Yeah.
But anyway, like everything's leading up to, hey, Lightning Network, Bitcoin payments, we can do this. It scales. Like we don't have to worry about it, use anything else, right? And I was kind of going down. At this point, I was already very deep down the Bitcoin rabbit hole, but I had finally come to the conclusion that it was like Bitcoin or nothing, and around like mid 2018, let's call it. So immediately, I was looking for different business ideas, and how Oshi initially started was about I was tinkering with Lightning nodes like in 2018, 2019. I was like, oh, this is so cool. Let me build an app to help people promote their products and services, and they can accept payments in Bitcoin, so over Lightning. But then we came to the conclusion that, well, it's obviously there are people that are very ideological about this that'll pay for Bitcoin on various products and services just because, right? It's like, I want to make my first Lightning payment. I want to buy something and kind of stick it to everyone. All the naysayers like, no, see, I used Bitcoin to buy a coffee after all. In fact, I bought a whole bag of coffee. And so, that's how we started. It was really cool. We got a lot of great feedback. And we also realized that, it's good to provide a little bit of incentive there as well, because there are still a lot of people that are like, I don't want to spend my Bitcoin. Like, why would I spend my Bitcoin? So we did this sats back thing, just like cash back. I mean, obviously Bitcoin rewards is pretty ubiquitous now, and it's growing. You have Fold, publicly traded company now, and it's really kind of leaving its mark on the reward space. And so that's what we did. But again, we were pretty much all like Bitcoin and Lightning native. And so we would get the businesses set up to accept Bitcoin payments on the back end, and then customers just pay them in the app. And we would have some janky integrations into like how we can help them fulfill the services once they got paid. And then of course the customers earned a lot of sats. And so, everything from whole cows literally to, bags of coffee or, various other things. So that's kind of how it started, right? And as the hype, obviously that cycle, that bull cycle kind of came to an end. And you're in the depths of the bear market, and Bitcoin payments, although it's still exciting and we're still happening, we're happening far less frequently than we would have liked. And we're like, okay, we need to, and obviously there were some limitations and stuff and things that we learned along the way. We're like, okay, I think we should probably transition to something that we do now where, we just integrate directly with the business very easily through their own websites, point of sale systems, and offer Bitcoin rewards to people as a loyalty and rewards program, regardless of how the customer pays. Pay in Bitcoin, awesome. They pay with their debit or credit card, great, whatever. You get Bitcoin rewards either way, to kind of, again, like we said initially, like take one step back to kind of allow people to bridge that gap, that chasm that is actually a bit wider than we had initially thought.
That was during the like Jack Mahler's NCR announcement. We're going into Walmart, we're going into all the national chains, right?
Everybody was full. Yeah, like I'm telling you, you guys probably, yeah, you clearly remember it. Like it was hyped. We're
Yeah.
talking, Bitcoin payments in El Salvador, Bitcoin Beach, like, yeah, like, they're now legal tender. Bitcoin's now legal tender in El Salvador. Like I went to El Salvador multiple times just to learn kind of how they were doing things down there. And it was super exciting. And, but ultimately, yeah, I think kind of, I don't want to blame just the bear market, but let's say the bear market sucked a lot of that wind out of the room real fast.
Yeah.
But yeah,
Well,
NCR, Toast, they were all kind of looking to tiptoe in.
well, and I think part of this, like, I like that you use the word bridge because that's kind of, I've been using that term as well recently. And one of the things that Jason and I've talked to is like that chicken and the egg problem of getting people onboarded. Because you can have a business that's onboarded, but then you also need the customer. So there's that two sides of the marketplace. So can you talk through like your thinking there in that pivot of how you're able to, just accept any type of payment, Bitcoin or fiat, and focusing more so on potentially the business or the customers who are demanding the sats back, and how that strategy came into your last few years in iterating on the product.
Yeah, absolutely. So I guess first, let me just say that I didn't really have many issues. I was like going Bitcoin Jesus on this thing. I didn't have many issues like going just door to door, business to business, business to business. Um, Pitching them on, hey, like we'll get you to accept Bitcoin, we'll put you in this app. People will, discover you. Bitcoin's getting hyped up right now. People are looking to get involved. And kind of our first debut of this was on Rainy Street. I believe it was like December 2021, if I'm not mistaken. Um, I just went down Rainy Street, up and down Rainy Street for over the course of like a week. And I just talked to all these different food truck vendors and businesses there. And we got like 20 businesses on Rainy Street accepting Bitcoin through the Oshi app. And we had around 500 people, 500 or 600 people show up on like a Wednesday evening, um, to like get out there and like pay with Bitcoin and all these different businesses, right? And so that was really cool. Um, Again, that kind of speaks to like the hype of the cycle too. Like people were traveling for this just to like get that experience. And people still come up to me this day and talk about like, dude, that was epic. Like that was so cool.
So hang on. So people traveled so that they can pay in Bitcoin.
Yeah, yeah,
Okay.
exactly. Yeah. I'm
That's
not kidding.
amazing. Yeah.
Yeah, it was like this big call to action. Again, the vibe during that time, people were so like enthusiastic and ideological and just the world, Bitcoin payments are going to take over. Like everybody was in this mindset and it made so much sense. Like it really did. Like, yeah, we were a little, we were all hyped up. Like it was bull market. Maybe we were running on fumes, but I mean, we know that it makes sense to do this,
Mhm.
but it doesn't mean that, you know, people don't necessarily understand what makes sense these days. It's like it takes time to change human behavior, right?
I just have this like mental picture of, people traveling to like pay with Visa or pay with Apple Pay or so it's just like, nowadays it's just so embedded in our financial system. Um, it's just such a normal thing to do to just like tap your card or all these different ways to pay. Um,
Yeah.
but yeah, times
Yeah.
times have changed. They getting through the bear market and everything, and fast
Yeah.
forward to today. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, that's a good that's a good point you bring up. Yeah. And but with that being said, I mean, people basically uh, made pilgrimage to Bitcoin Beach in El Salvador. I mean,
Yeah.
they is the same kind of vibe. Like I showed up there like a week after Mallers announced the Bitcoin legal tender bill was like working its way through El Salvador. That iconic, pre-recorded Nayib Bukele video. Now we have like Donald Trump, like, live talking about it. It's just insane how far we come. It's crazy. But uh, and I went down there a week or two later, and it was just I was surrounded by I was still kind of like breaking into the space, I guess you could say. Like I knew a lot of people, but I hadn't really met a lot of them yet in the space, and just so many people were there, big names. I was like, oh my gosh, like I was kind of starstruck at that time, and people just came, and like the payments were flowing, right? People were bullish. Um, in any case, so going back, so we're on Rainy Street. We got all this stuff set up. Uh, they were all set up to accept Bitcoin payments. After that event, though, there was just such a crazy, precipitous drop off in the number of payments that those businesses, right? Like it's like people wanted that experience at first, and they were willing to go to great lengths to get it, almost, right? But over time, like there was just a drop off. So what I learned. It was very easy to get businesses set up to accept it. And again, I want to paint this picture like they should. It's fairly easy, all things considered, especially with the tools today. Um, and it can really just be a set it and forget it thing. But I then realized that even if you get all the businesses on, the consumers at that point, and I think it's still partially true today, but it's growing every day. Most consumers aren't ready yet. Even Bitcoiners, they're like, it's tough, especially if we're talking about locally, to like get perhaps the relatively speaking small number of Bitcoiners that are willing to pay in Bitcoin in that geographic location to do it. Um, Online is much better, and it's also much easier to accept, like if you're e-commerce. But in any case, so that's what we learned. We learned like I think it was just a bit early. Again, that was 4 years ago, 3 years ago, 3.5 years ago. But yeah, that's what we learned. So to bridge that, we said, look, clearly, um, I want people to get more exposure to Bitcoin. I think if they do, they'll probably be more willing to pay with it. And I want people to earn it as easily as possible then, just with the transactions they already do. And I also want to make sure that whenever we set up a business to accept Bitcoin, I want to make sure that it has more of like a long-term benefit. Well, let's say immediate benefit and long-term. regardless of whether or not anybody pays in Bitcoin. Bitcoin's the future. People are going to pay with it, but I want to bridge that, right? So yeah, we set up the loyalty and rewards program. Everybody that shops at these businesses get Bitcoin rewards, and we hope that well, they're already doing it in some cases, but over time, more and more people will take those rewards and they'll pay with Bitcoin, right? So that's kind of where we
So
started, where we're at.
So walk us through, Michael. How does your app work today? Is this mostly a reward system and it integrates on the back end with some kind of like Bitcoin payment rails, or is this like a Bitcoin payment system that merchants can just set up? Like let's take the merchant's perspective for 1 second. How
Mhm.
does it work for a business and they want to accept Bitcoin and use the Oshi app?
Yeah, so we're kind of revamping the app completely, but it's so let's just take it from the merchant perspective. Um, we integrate with Shopify, Square, WooCommerce, Stripe, Zapright. We integrate with these different payment providers, and whenever customers make a purchase on, let's say, either their point of sale or their website, as long as we get an email or phone number, or they opt into the rewards program, whenever they're making their standard purchase, they immediately get Bitcoin rewards via email. And so it's Bitcoin rewards as a loyalty and rewards program. So VIP tiers, referral bonuses, first purchase bonuses, stuff like that. And so it acts and functions just like an everyday loyalty and rewards program, except the points are sats. So no coffee points, no miles, punch cards, stars. It's sats. And what this unlocks is a kind of a marketplace where all these different businesses, their rewards unit of account is sats. So, in one hand, you're able to attract customers that maybe don't know much about Bitcoin, but would love to get free sats effectively, love to get exposure to Bitcoin by shopping without really changing their behavior whatsoever. They just shop at these businesses, they discover these businesses. And then on the other hand, you can kind of consolidate all these rewards from all these different businesses that you've earned at into like a single place, like an app or our web based kind of app. And yeah, it's like kind of a unified loyalty program where the sats are the rewards, and it's available global, and it's actually valuable outside of just that business alone. So it actually unlocks a
Okay,
customer
so
acquisition channel as well, because
right.
nobody's ever going to shop at your business, but they're like, oh, this place offers coffee points. I'm so there. No one's ever going to say that. Maybe they're already shopping there, and then they're like, oh, I got some coffee points, so let me shop a few more times. Let me buy a few more, and then I'll get a free coffee on like my fifth visit. Whereas this, you're actually attracting customers who maybe wouldn't have known about you otherwise, but because they want Bitcoin, they're like, oh, immediately they're like, hey, I like this brand is cool. Like I'll shop at them over another business perhaps.
So basically, that gets into what I was going to kind of pull on loyalty, right? And explaining what happened on Rainy Street, which for those who are not familiar, Rainy is like a very outgoing street with a ton of bars here in Austin, Texas. And Bitcoiners are loyal, right? And we see these little circular economies starting to pop up, even if the hype might not be as loud or as noticeable as it was 4 years ago. It's still
Mm-hmm.
happening. And the question or basically the point that I'm trying to get across here is it when you are a business and you open the door to providing this for Bitcoiners who either want to earn more sats or want to even spend their sats, then it creates a whole nother way for you to engage with people, businesses and customers alike. And then from there, you start seeing this Bitcoin thing going directly peer to peer, and you're like, oh, that actually is a little different. Like maybe I should learn more about this. And then what's the best way to get more sats? It's to accept it as a payment. And I
Mm-hmm.
think that's the step back, if you will, the bridge of just opening the door for people to see it in action in a relatively seamless and easy way.
That's right. Yeah, exactly. And I'm more and more of the opinion that the people that are going to be spending their sats the most in the short term are those that probably just earned it for free. and perhaps they don't as a consumer. I mean, there's a million different ways, like if you're a Bitcoiner, to spend sats, and you can spin and replace. Like it's very easy if you know what you're doing, but if you don't, one, you might not really see the value in it yet. Like, it's exciting because it's like it's Bitcoin, and even if you don't know much about Bitcoin, it's like intriguing, at least kind of captivating, better than coffee points. But you'd probably also be more likely to uh, spend them in the sense of, I want to redeem these sats for a coffee, or I want to redeem these sats. So in the app, that's another mechanism where people can redeem their sats for various goods and services from businesses. And we haven't fully launched that piece yet. It's in progress, but we're anticipating people are going to redeem a lot of sats, and especially people that don't fully understand what Bitcoin and sats are yet, which is great. That's exactly what we want. And it's crazy to think, but perhaps the people that don't understand the value of sats in terms of like mass scale, they're going to be effectively spending their sats to redeem things for products and services more than the actual Bitcoiners, which is exactly kind of what I want. I don't need to convince the Bitcoiners like the value of Bitcoin and like, hey, they should spend their sats. I want to get people that have no clue, that can really move the bar and move the needle for these businesses. Like, um, could actually maybe really show up on their bottom line, if they're, because Bitcoiners are a small subset, an important subset of the total customer base, and a very ideological, and you know they're going to bring you bang for your buck. But what's really going to move the needle is like the everyday person that just got some sats and they're like, I want to, like, I'll use these, I'll send these back to the business to redeem for something.
It's a very bottom-up approach too. You're not trying to educate them with books and podcasts and knowledge. It's just like it's practical. It's useful.
Yeah, here's some sats. Do you want them?
Yeah.
Great. You don't? That's fine. Don't accept them then. They'll go back to the business owner. After like 30 days, if you don't want to, all you have to do is just claim them. Like if they get an email or a text that says, hey, claim your sats, and they don't want to, then that's okay too. But we have a fairly high claim rate, so they like the sats. Yeah, I mean, I think something else to consider that I highlighted a bit earlier is the standard loyalty and reward program. Like, one, I said, it's not particularly exciting. Enter Bitcoin and it becomes a bit more exciting, a bit more modern, better for, especially the younger generations that are highly attached to like brands, like brand identity. Like they're super attached. Like an influencer says, hey, buy this, and they buy it. They trust that brand, and then they trust the brand that their influencer is selling. It's very, very brand oriented. And so, hey, like, this brand gives you Bitcoin, that's cool. But a whole nother element of that is, as I said, is it opens up for a loyalty and rewards program for the first time. It's actually a customer acquisition channel. So these people that like Bitcoin can discover you. And that's effectively what the app is doing. The app is effectively showing you all the businesses where you can earn Bitcoin and all the special deals they have to earn it, and then even ways to redeem it, places to spend it, and so on.
So so basically, Michael, the customer can pay in fiat or Bitcoin if the merchant accepts Bitcoin,
Mhm.
right?
Correct.
And then does the customer opt in to the reward? Like, let's say I'm a merchant, I've got a WordPress site using WooCommerce with
Mhm.
Oshi integrated. How does the customer, and let's say the customer comes to my site, they're buying some widgets, um,
Mhm.
do they just automatically get opted in and they just get an email from both me and your app as a rewards platform, or how does that work?
Yeah, so currently, if they opt into marketing in your business, so they check that box during checkout, or at least they don't uncheck it,
Mhm.
then yeah, this acts as just kind of like a marketing email. So they'll receive an email from you for the purchase, and then they'll receive an email immediately thereafter that's completely branded for their business and says, hey, like, you earn Bitcoin rewards in this purchase, click here to claim. And by claim, it's just like literally just click it to say you want it. You can save it as long as you want. They don't expire. They're sats, and they're good anywhere Bitcoin is accepted or exchanged, so um, that's how that works. And then whenever they click on that link, it also shows other ways to earn from the business. So follow us on Twitter, follow us on, whatever, and then refer your friends and get commission in Bitcoin on their purchases and so on.
Yeah, I mean, I'm a user of Oshi, and it's honestly it's seamless. Like especially when you pay in Bitcoin. Like you see how easy it is. Because if
Mhm.
I have my Strike Lightning wallet and I scan a QR code through ZapRite after putting in my email or phone number, whichever one, I immediately get that notification. It takes me to the site, and then I just withdraw it to my Primal wallet because it's, I view those sats as like, okay, now that's my reward sats. I'm gonna use that circular economy to what you were saying of like redeeming it. I'm gonna use it on Noster.
Yeah.
But it all happens in an instant where it's just one very easy flow on your phone, and you see the sats show up. You hit the three little buttons, withdraw, and
Mhm.
input your Noster Primal Lightning wallet. And it could be obviously any Lightning wallet, but that's just kind of what I've been doing. And to your point, it's exciting. Like it makes it feel like it's kind of, there was the whole girl math trend that went around where like you feel like you're making money even though you spent money.
Yeah.
And it's just like it doesn't, it's that whole that's the excitement thing that, when I got my two coffee points this morning uh from a coffee shop downtown,
Mhm.
I was like, okay, like I'm never going to see those again. I don't even
Yeah.
know how to spend them.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. It's like it's yeah, the coffee points, the airline miles, the stars, the punch cards, like it's over. It's gonna take a little time, but it's over. I mean, it's almost like the internet versus the intranet. It's like, look, you can either like confine these little points that are only usable and spendable and earnable at your business, or you can like open up yourself. Um, and maybe it seems counterintuitive at first, but that also seemed counterintuitive again, the intranet versus internet. Like they thought, oh yeah,
Mm.
we'll just use the internet like internally only because that's the way it should be done. But they open up and it just blew the doors off everything. It's like and again, I think the main component there is for the first time ever, like people will actually seek out these businesses that are offering Bitcoin rewards. Um, and perhaps go so far as to say that if you're running a Bitcoin rewards and loyalty program, you're almost kind of like grooming your customers in the future to be customers that might be more willing and able to pay with Bitcoin in the future as this trend continues and as more and more people wake up and realize, like, one, of course I should accept it. Why wouldn't I? And then over time, consumers will just become you know, more willing to pay with it.
Medium of Exchange is sponsored by the Bitcoin Payments Advisor. If you own or run a business and you'd like to accept Bitcoin but don't know how, the Bitcoin Payments Advisor can help. From specific software recommendations and accounting implications to training employees and marketing so your customers know you accept this new form of payment, the Bitcoin Payments Advisor can help simplify your journey in accepting Bitcoin for your business. Check out bitcoinpaymentsadvisor.com. Again, that's bitcoinpaymentsadvisor.com. Now let's get back to the show. Michael, I have a question. So Bitcoin rewards, like everyone listening to this podcast, if you own a business, you should sign up for the app, right?
Yeah.
But in addition to this reward platform, for some of our listeners who are maybe not yet where you were when you first got into this business, when you were excited, you're pumped, you're like, all right, medium of exchange. For some of our listeners might be like, well, why should a business accept Bitcoin? Or why should a person who has Bitcoin pay with Bitcoin? And I know those are different questions. Maybe you can tackle them one by one.
Mhm.
Um, but could you share your thoughts on that?
Yes. So why should a business accept Bitcoin? Initially, I would have said that they should accept Bitcoin because, for let's say the more obvious reasons, I would have said, well, you're going to save on processing fees, okay? Chargeback protection, okay? Um, and then I would have said, well, obviously, like if you store it and hold it, and like businesses that have accepted Bitcoin, assuming they held on to it, hopefully they did, that were using our app early on. I mean, they've seen a 20x in the value of that purchase, right? And so, because we first launched, Bitcoin was like $4,000. It was like right during COVID. And so, right, literally the day I was pitching this, like in a local startup, event, it was the day that I think it was like April 12th or something. It was the day that all the markets just took a dump. and Bitcoin went from like, I don't know, 10K to 4K or 5K or something like that, whatever it was, like a 50% drop. And, people that were receiving Bitcoin during that time, obviously, again, like that's like a 20x.
It's like what like VCs dream of. That's their
Yeah. Yeah. Your coffee got a better return on investment than VCs do on their, like, I mean, it's like, yeah, great. Like you're a VC now. We're all VCs. Like, so it's interesting. So that would have been my main pitch whenever I first started getting into it. And all of those things make sense, right? Makes perfect sense. It's very reasonable, very logical, still holds true today, but I would tweak it a bit. I would now turn it into it's more about just accepting it and saying that you accept it than anything else. It's more about brand. It's more about aligning yourself with a particular type of consumer that sees their purchasing power go up instead of down. People that, they hold more Bitcoin, they feel better in economic uncertainty because, they're seeing 40 to 50, 60% compound annual growth on their savings, right? Like these are people that are a little bit less price insensitive, and they're the type of customers you want, right? And so that's what I would say now. It's like, forget about even if they pay with it. Like just align with that type of customer for branding. And the reason why I say that, and again, I'm not trying to like dog on Bitcoin payments, but let's go step by step. And something I realized not too long ago, as I was going through this process, was that, okay, so you save on processing fees. Let's say you're a local business, mom and pop shop, wherever, it's like how many Bitcoiners that are willing to pay with their Bitcoin are near you? Statistically speaking, not very many, and that's okay. However, let's say they do. Let's say $1,000. They, over the course of a year, they spend $1,000 at you. Hey, that's going to make a 20x one day. It's worth it. But if we're going to say, like processing fees, you're going to save not much, right? It doesn't matter. It's negligible. It's surrounding error. It doesn't matter. We're talking chargebacks. Most businesses are like, I don't even have chargebacks anyway. It's okay. Or I do. It just depends on the business, obviously. But generally speaking, so that I would just toss that out in the initial pitch to a business owner now. The whole store of value thing, perfect. Store it, accept it. It's awesome. You can also just go buy it. And it's a lot more cool to accept it. You can just buy it. Just as effective, generally speaking, unless you want to, stash away. And, like it just depends. Unless you don't have any, it's nice to do it peer to peer. Let's say. So I would replace that with, hey, just accept it, put yourself out there, and also it allows you to kind of practice with it and understand how it works and put it in front of your customers and just like get the word out about it. I think is very valuable and important to do. But yeah, by and large, I would today just say it's mainly about aligning yourself with the customer that is valuable now and will be more and more valuable as time goes on. And they're a passionate group of individuals, and you want them in your corner. So if you can not just accept it and just say, hey, I accept it, but actually spend 10 hours looking into Bitcoin, figuring out what it's all about. 10 hours isn't enough time, but it's enough to get the gist. All right. And accept it and put yourself out there, put your best foot forward, and people will be very receptive.
and think about if the purchasing power of your customer 20x's the
That's right.
impact on your business.
That's a good customer to have. Exactly. So
That's
that's where I've evolved personally in my communication of it and understanding of it. And I would just say, you know, we still probably have 100x from here in the next decade, I think. And so, it's never too late. And, you should always just start familiarizing yourself with it. Take the first step, accept it. You don't have to do something fancy. You can literally just download Strike or Cash App and just, whatever, have an iPad there at the point of sale and just here, pay. You don't have to do anything fancy to get started, but just take the first step.
I love that. Take the first step.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, that's great because I'm also thinking about this from the like customer side too of the customer taking the first step. And this is maybe a bit of a shifting gears, but Michael, you're also the main organizer of the Austin Bitcoin Club. And I think one of the parallels that I'm seeing of what you're describing in orange pilling businesses, and then also how you've evolved the Austin Bitcoin Club and many of the topics that are discussed every month, or events that you've helped put on. And I've been super grateful to kind of help and step into a volunteer and now co-organizer role to run this with you. But I'm curious to kind of flip the other side of the coin there of making it simple for the someone who might be Bitcoin curious, but still feels intimidated. And for me, what I just to give my perspective before I let you jump in, not great podcasting tactic, but whatever, is when I moved down to Austin and didn't know anybody and came to the Austin Bitcoin Club, I found it to be like the most approachable group of Bitcoiners that I'd ever been around. And that was so, energizing to me because I was like, oh, damn, people like me exist. So I guess the question to just bring it back up again is your approach with what is your approach with the Austin Bitcoin Club, and how have you taken lessons learned on both the Oshi and ABC side to introduce more people into Bitcoin?
Yeah, well, thanks for the kind words. And that's exactly what we're going for. We want to make it super approachable. Whenever we think about topics, I typically try to, um, you know, put together a panel or create a topic of discussion that could bring in a different audience. So we don't just go in there and be like, yeah, so here's how Bitcoin works. What is Bitcoin 101? We really just jump right into it. We're like, yeah, so this one's about health and wellness in Bitcoin and how they coincide. This one's about fiat food and Bitcoin. This one's about it changes, like privacy in Bitcoin, to bring together different demographics of people where with different interests where they can actually attach Bitcoin to a specific topic as opposed to just throwing it out there and jamming it down their throats and being like, and it's really created, yeah, it's created like a cool community of people that, don't necessarily come there just to be like, just to talk about Bitcoin. It's like the community and everyone's living their best life and doing whatever they're doing, and trying new things, checking out new things, and bringing that all into the meetup. So um, it's become less of a place to just talk about Bitcoin and more of a place to just vibe with with like-minded people about various topics. Yeah, and like I said, I've been pretty careful about that. I really wanted to be approachable as possible. So yeah, so I'm glad you found that to be the case.
100%. And I think that I agree with that, and almost what you were saying of like businesses just accepting it. It's like, hey, this is a club that we all like Bitcoin, but we like other things too. So we'll talk about interesting stuff that's going on outside of the Bitcoin world. And usually it tends back towards Bitcoin because that's what we're all also interested. That's the common denominator. But I've
Yeah.
also had so many conversations about a variety of different topics that is all just ideologically aligned. And
Mhm.
I think that's what's cool about this community aspect of building the Bitcoin ecosystem is generally once people, whether it's that 10 hours that you're referring to, or if it's 10,000 hours, they have that gist and that understanding of the foundational of 21 million and decentralized right to privacy, all that type of stuff.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. Then kind of going back to Jason, your question, like the other side of the coin of okay, I believe first we were talking about the business owner, why should they? And then the consumer, why should they? I think this is an interesting thing. I feel like there are some insights into this as well. So I hear a lot about, people are talk about Jack Dorsey. Jack Dorsey saying like, if Bitcoin isn't a medium of exchange, then like it's going to fail or something to that effect. It hasn't fulfilled its purpose. I think that's going to come at some point. Like there's no question in my mind that it will. Um, so then people called him out. Okay, well, put your point of sale where your mouth is, right? So now he's saying, oh, okay, well, yeah, we're going to implement Bitcoin payments. We're going to try it. But I think just reading into that language, he said, we're going to like basically said, we're going to try it again, right? And he actually doesn't expect many people to use it. And something that um, I think a lot of people attribute the lack of Bitcoin as a method of exchange. They sometimes attribute it to, oh, well, the UX is just not there yet, right? Like the QR codes and like you gotta scan or like it's just so confusing. I don't really think it's that. I don't really think it's that at all. I used to think that, and so we like tried to make the UX and kind of like pioneered. Um, I make it sound like it's some grand thing, but kind of like pioneered, a UX of paying with Bitcoin, where like you could select which wallet you wanted. Because there was a time whenever you scan the QR code, a Bitcoin QR code, it would always pull up the whatever app, Bitcoin payment app, in alphabetical order. So usually for people it would be the Breeze wallet and pull up, and everybody's like, oh, I don't actually use this that much, like and so it's super anyway. So we were focusing on the UX from the customer perspective for a while, and I didn't really feel like it moved the needle that much. I think if somebody wants to pay in Bitcoin, they're going to pay in Bitcoin, and I don't think it's so much a matter of like the UX is too complicated or anything like that. It's just human behavior. It's also worth noting that people don't even use Apple Pay much in the United States. I don't know about you. I only started using it like a couple of years ago, and I'm just shocked that it took me so long because it's all I use now. I don't even bring my wallet anywhere anymore. Like I've been caught many times with my pants down on that. Like, wait, you guys don't take, well, how do I you just take my ID? Like, I don't know, it like happens to me more than I'd like to admit, actually. And
And that
so,
was like over a decade, probably. I was probably like 2012-ish when Apple Pay came out.
yeah, I don't remember. I used to know all the stats, but yeah, it was a long time ago.
Well, and on top of Apple Pay coming out, a quick story from me is in 2020, I was in Australia, and Australia is actually pretty progressive in terms of their financial services
Mhm.
and very innovative. So all of their point of sale terminals had tap to pay, and the credit cards that I was using, American Express, Chase Bank, they didn't even have tap to pay yet. So like when I asked when I would like hand them my card to pay for a coffee or whatever, just through US dollar, like that was, or whatever the
Yeah.
Australian dollar conversion was, they'd be like, why are you handing me this thing? Like, I'm
Mhm.
like, well, I need to put the chip in. And then, fast forward 2 years and it's like tap to pays everywhere. Toast is taking over every point of sale. But
Mhm.
that is a great point. I never even realized that that transformation has happened so fast. So
Yeah.
it speaks volumes to how early really everything is.
Yeah, exactly. And I think it's interesting too. Like, there's been more talk about like, oh, like you can just use like your tap signer card, or like not tap signer, but like a lightning like tap to pay card, and that's like the smoothest. It's like it just doesn't, man. Like people, Apple Pay is by far the best experience, and like what, like 50% of people in the United States have an iPhone, and like it's preloaded on there, and like they still don't use it. Like it's something. I think like last year, whenever I looked at the stats, it was like 5% of people, which just sounds insane, right? Like 5% of commerce is that way. It's like what? 5%? 1 in 20? What? And it just blew my mind. I was like, wow. And it's been around for 10 years and it's already on everybody's phone. So I guess kind of coming back here, if Square enables it or any point of sale enables it, it does not mean people are going to use it. It's already on, they have Apple Pay and they don't even use it. And it's all preloaded, ready to go on their phone. So easy. Better experience. Already, they don't have to need to download anything. And again, I'm not bagging on Bitcoin payments. I'm just saying sometimes these things take time and then it just happens. Like it can happen very quickly as well. So it could be a gradually, then suddenly. But I think it's much more of a consumer behavior. And to your point about like Australia and Europe, they're way ahead in terms of like they adopted tap to pay, all that stuff, way before us. Like you said, it's like ubiquitous over there, and we're still like swiping over here while they're like, I saw a tap to pay on uh, like a little air pressure station at a gas station, and I was like, the future's here. Like we're good to go. And just another anecdote, because I just love laughing about some of this stuff. It's like last year, HEB, somebody got some engagement from HEB on Twitter, and they said, "Hey, like you should accept lightning payments at HEB. Like, let's do it." And I was like, guys, they don't accept Apple Pay yet. They don't have tap to pay. I forget my wallet there all the time. They do now. They just did Apple Pay like 6 months ago, or it's like a year ago, right? So I'm just saying, like, we're just very early here. And it's a great thing. Like, pat yourselves on the back, but it could happen fast. Like, don't get me wrong. So, if Square enables Bitcoin payments, they totally should do it. Allow the merchants to just turn it on. But I don't know, Cash App Pay is on every terminal as well. And I never see anybody use it at all. So it's just something to keep in mind, just to stay humble and keep fighting the good fight and keep pushing the boundaries, but just, live within expectations of how long some of these things actually take. But again, it's not to say that we shouldn't try and like we shouldn't push forward, because these things can happen very quickly. My main point is it's I don't believe it's a UX problem. I mean, I could keep I could
What do you
keep
think the tipping point is when we go from, to use very often quoted gradually and suddenly, but it's sort of under the surface and then very quickly it's like the tipping point.
Yeah, I don't know. I think about this a lot. I wonder. I think I think incentives are very important. I think incentives for paying with Bitcoin are very important, and that's exactly why we made Oshi. I think, you know, giving people a reason to pay with Bitcoin could incentivize them. And I just look at this through like what little knowledge of payment history I have. Whenever I was researching, and a bit of it's fuzzy because I this was years ago where I dove deep into this as I was kind of forming my newly found opinion through experience and through research. And merchants merchants were the credit card was that took time, and the experience was abysmal. The zip zaps, as they call them, the carbon copy machines. I like to
I've
talk
got
about
one
this.
downstairs.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, the experience isn't great. Okay, like, and hey, sometimes you still have to fall back onto it even today. Like, I
We
don't
we
know.
call them knuckle busters.
Exactly. Yeah. So like literal pain, perhaps, whenever you do enough of these, right?
That's right.
Pain. Is the Bitcoin experience worse than that? Hell no, it's a million times better, right? So it's like
That's such a good point.
we have to stay humble here and realize, like, look, like it's not Bitcoin's fault. Like there's just another element here that we just haven't quite cracked, or people aren't quite ready to do it at scale. And it's like, so yeah, from the merchant perspective, like, oh my gosh, it's so easy to accept Bitcoin. Like, could if we said, hey, like I said, credit cards are ubiquitous, and that's how they started, and they caught on pretty quick, all things considered. But yeah, literal pain from your staff. I mean, if we're talking about pain for your staff today, we're like, someone else wants to pay in Bitcoin. I have to like punch in the amount and show them a QR code. I mean, come on, like I don't think it's that big a deal, but that can be a big deal for businesses. Sometimes the employees are like, like it happens.
I, I mean, my background for almost 4 years was in change management and digital transformations. That is like the least surprising thing I've heard, because to your point, like people just get so set in their ways that to get them to change is really hard. And what's
Mhm.
very interesting about Bitcoin versus like in the workplace is Bitcoin becomes a personal decision. So
Mhm.
in many ways, when that like agency is put back on the individual, there is that light switch moment. So I think that's why it happens quickly versus like
Mhm.
if your boss is telling you to change, then you're either going to do it because he or she is your boss,
Mhm.
or you're not going to do it because you're like, oh, this change is too hard. Like I don't really understand why we need to do it anyways, and I'm just going to keep going until he either or she either forgets or just it breaks anyways, and I'm forced to do it. No,
Yeah.
that's kind of this whole thesis of change management, right? And with Bitcoin, there's a little bit of that, but at the end of the day, one single person can make that decision, and then that creates the avalanche. But no, I totally hear you from the employee training perspective. And if you're a business owner and you have to make it as seamless as possible, because it's something new, because we already went through the pain of adapting credit cards or adopting credit cards. And
Hmm.
some people remember that. Personally, I've always been using a credit card, but I remember the change to tap to pay and then to Apple Pay. And now there are people who are like, what do you mean you can't? Your wallet isn't your phone. Like, your phone isn't your wallet. That's not the same thing. And
Yeah.
it's like, well, no, they are now.
Yeah.
Not to, so that's the transformation. And that's why I think, Bitcoin is it's such a large scale transformation, because you're literally changing the foundation of our entire financial system. So regardless of how that happens, it's going to take time.
Hmm.
It's impossible not to, because you have multi-billion-dollar corporations that can't change a process in less than 8 months.
Hmm. That's right. And and again, I really think it's all about the incentives. Like, hey, you're just spitballing here. It's like, hey, whenever a customer pays with Bitcoin, like whichever employee accepted it gets a little kickback of it. That would be cool. Like little things like that. But in any
Yeah.
case, I think what really made credit cards incredibly appealing were the rewards. Full stop. All the influencers were showing these rewards credit cards, and I was like primed at that age. Like whenever I was kind of like old enough to get a credit card, like that's whenever it was all blowing up. And I was like, yeah, I'm gonna use this. I'm gonna pay it off every month, get all this free cash. That's why I got one. I would have never gotten one otherwise. Like I would have just been like, yeah, whatever. Like who cares? It's just another way to pay. You see what I'm saying? It's like, oh yeah, Bitcoin, who
Yeah.
cares? It's just another way to pay. Like what? Who cares? I already have my way that I pay. So there needs to be different incentives, whether it's through like a discount, but I actually think that rewards work better just generally. Um, if everywhere you went with your debit or credit card, if it said, yeah, you get a 5% discount whenever you use this card, I don't think it would have caught on as much. I think it's the rewards. And I think,
Mhm.
people just love to, some people literally use these rewards as like their savings account. Like that's their, it's like that's part of my retirement is my rewards, like I'm going to travel everywhere and, whatever. So I think that's just the world we live in. It doesn't always make perfect sense. It's not always rational or logical, but that's the world we live in. I think the incentives are going to be the driving force here, as always, really. The incentives. And people have different attachment to different incentives, but one thing everybody likes getting is a little bit of free money. So yeah.
So I was thinking a lot about, so I've been in credit card processing since 2010, and I was initially deploying these terminals called Verifone VX510s. Those did not have what we called EMV, which is like chip card capabilities. It was just swipe. There's no tap to pay or anything like that. And the way they got merchants to upgrade is essentially by forcing them, because the security standards weren't up to par for the card brands, Visa, MasterCard. They basically said, okay, you can keep using this VX510 if you want to, but if it glitches, if it goes down, if you need to call tech support, anything at all, we're we're sunsetting this thing. It's not compliant. We're not going to be able to help you out at all. And then it would force them, and so I would always get those calls. That was a huge part of my role of onboarding all these merchants to start accepting chip cards. Now, this is pre-tap to pay. This is just insert. We switched the terminology from swipe to dip, and so you stick the card in the bottom of the terminal instead of swipe it through. But I wonder what that is for Bitcoin, where it's like merchants are like, okay, change is hard. I guess I'll upgrade. Is it bank failures or political unrest or some kind of major systemic change where the merchants kind of like, okay, it's time to start accepting Bitcoin now. I'm ready because I pretty much have to.
Yeah, that's a good question. I really don't know. I mean, obviously, like if any of those things happened to a point that really kind of, push people towards using it, yeah, but that's interesting. Yeah, like an upgrade in the, payment, uh, the hardware basically for as a forcing function. Perhaps, yeah. I really don't know. Like what? Oh, I think all those things that you said could be a catalyst for it. Um,
Mhm.
but obviously, like I have this company that's doing this thing, not just, so it's because I believe that I think the major forcing function is just the incentives. Um, but I don't know how high the incentives need to be. I think perhaps a little bit of the catalyst that you described combined with a little bit of the incentives. It's like kind of meet halfway sort of thing. But I think for
Mhm.
for people to all of a sudden wake up and be like, oh my God, I need to use Bitcoin and have Bitcoin and like convert all my money to Bitcoin. And now I can do nothing but spend Bitcoin because I don't have any dollars anymore because that's hyperinflating away.
Mhm.
That's a dark time. And so um, like that's that kind of hyper Bitcoinization, right?
Yeah, it
Um,
makes me nervous, man. I don't
that's a dark
necessarily want
time.
that.
Yeah, that's
Yeah.
a dark time. I think it's far better to just kind of like you have the pressures that you described, all the catalysts
Yeah.
over here that's kind of like squishing people, pushing them towards it. And then you have like incentives, like usability, ideology, whatever the case may be, kind of
Yeah.
pushing this way. And
Mhm.
I think they'll meet halfway and hopefully uh the incentives and the ideology and the education on Bitcoin moves a lot faster than the political pressures, the hyperinflation, and everything. So I don't want to meet halfway. I want Bitcoin to push like 75% of the way there so we don't have as much chaos. And I think that's ultimately, I view it as like, you're on two skis and, we'll slowly kind of transition to the other side over time.
Well, I for sure appreciate you playing a role in that 75% push. Because to your point, the UI, the user experience of Oshi is, as I said before, it is as easy as it gets. And you feel like you're actually getting rewarded for spending, and it's creating real loyalty, not just with these brands and businesses that are accepting, but also Bitcoin in itself and playing with it and spending it. And that is what it's meant to be. It is a peer-to-peer digital cash. So,
Mhm.
um, Jason, unless you have any other questions, I can't thank you enough, Michael. This was a ton of fun, and happy to give you kind of final word of where to find you and where to find Oshi, and any other updates you want to share.
Yeah, I mean, I guess maybe maybe we can touch on one more thing, actually.
Let's do it.
Um,
Let's do it.
I think that the issue with traditional cashback and rewards program, it's really just like this reappropriation of economic rents, like these excessive economic rents. So ultimately, the customer is the one who is paying for these rewards. They don't realize it. There was a study done by one of the Federal Reserve banks. I don't remember which one it was, but it basically said, look, these people who get these cards they feel as though they're like making money and earning all these rewards, but really they're only recouping 30% of the payment processing fees they're spending. So they're just getting poor faster. And then of course the issue is these people that don't have access to the credit or debit cards or the banking system at large, or they just don't have, let's say, I don't know, the education or just to understand these things, they're all just paying cash, whatever the case may be. The older individuals, so on, that haven't leveled up digitally, um, they're footing the bill as well. They're just paying more money for these products and services because again, it's not like something where the merchant goes, oh, okay, like so this is $10 for this, but because of payment processing fees, we need to make it like $10 plus 2.9% plus 30 cents or whatever. Like that's not how it goes. It just works its way in. They're like, all right, here's our margins. Okay, we need to keep this margin. Let's increase our cost. So really, we're just paying. It's really what's happening is we're just enriching the payment processors, which, hey, it's a valuable service pre-Bitcoin and Lightning, right? Very valuable. We don't have to get into that, but effectively what they're doing is they're luring you in with rewards and cash back and incentives. And they're actually taking more out of your back pocket than they're giving you. That's exactly what's happening. And if we're talking about the ideological battle here between small business, local grassroots America or globally, and the big corporations who there's nothing wrong with making money, like I'll die on that hill. But it's like, first and foremost, we should be able to thrive locally, and build great products and services locally, and compete on, let's say, an equitable, not the co-opted equitable term politically recently, but just a
I know
more
what you mean.
equitable playing field here. Um, I every single time you swipe that card, that's money leaving your local economy and going straight to, the payment processors, financial institutions. And where is that money going? Probably towards stock buybacks and financialization, basically funding your competitors. You're funding, this little mom and pop coffee shop is funding Starbucks every single time their customers swipe the card. So if we're getting like really ideological here, it's like, that's actually a whole nother element. And that's why what really led me to like, no, like we have to get Bitcoin payments going. Small businesses, grassroots, bottom up, like local spending, creates, local wealth, and Bitcoin helps protect wealth communities create, like that sort of mantra. Um, but alas, it's a bit too early. But I just think giving businesses the ability to give however many rewards they want back using Bitcoin, like they can't say, "Hey, I'm going to give you 1% cash back straight from me into your bank. You just use this Chase card." Like I cut a deal with Chase, is this mom and pop coffee shop where I'm going to give you more back. That's not even accessible to them generally. They can only give what? Coffee points, stars. They can't do anything else. So it's like this whole idea of kind of where Oshi came from, and what we're trying to facilitate is this concept of like, look, uh, you can reward your customers with something real, and something that you've never really been able to do unless you want to pull out the cash register and give them $1 back every time. Or what's that anyway, a cash register? Or Venmo them or Cash App them. Like it's pretty tough to send them like 10 cents or something like that, but with Bitcoin you can do it, right? So it's really cool, it's really interesting. I'm not like a micro payment maxi kind of thing, like I think that's a little overblown, but that's effectively what this is, sort of. It's like it gives people the ability and the optionality to do something cool and reward their customers, and in hopes that eventually these customers, um, not because they understand or truly, see the value in kind of what we just described, on these, excessive economic rents, but because, you know, maybe there's some other catalyst or combination of the two where they decide they want to start paying in Bitcoin. And that's a world where wealth stays local. And of course, if they're holding Bitcoin, then small and medium-sized businesses that are holding Bitcoin and earning it will grow uh, faster, and their balance sheets will grow faster uh, than other businesses. And of course, their customers will also become more wealthy. So that's the world I want to create. And we're trying to do it. But we're trying to figure out ways to get that done. So yeah, just wanted to touch on that a little bit.
That was
Out of
no, that
that.
was
That was great.
Yeah, that was amazing. One of our mantras at my payment processing company is that we move money from Wall Street to Main Street.
Amazing.
What you're describing, though, is on a whole nother level of moving from Wall Street to Main Street, right? You've like so many additional layers. Like I'm just trying to do it through credit card processing for the last 15 years. And I'm like, like ultimately from a Bitcoiner standpoint, ultimately failing at that, right? Because we're not accomplishing this beautiful goal that you're describing. And
Mhm.
so it also, I want to push back for a second. You said we're a bit too early. I think your expectations maybe when you started, you were too high, but we're not too early. Customers can pay with Bitcoin today through
You're right.
Oshi app, through all kinds of ways. Merchants can start accepting Bitcoin today. And and that is a journey that I'm excited to see continue to grow each and every day, obviously. But the time is now.
Yeah, no, you're right. You're absolutely right. I stand corrected. We're not too early. It's never been a better time. You're absolutely right. My expectations were
Yeah.
too high. These things
Yeah.
take time. There's never been a better time. It's easier than ever. I mean, Bitcoin's everywhere right now. I mean, it's so easily accessible. Like, it's so easy to accept it, generally speaking. Like, you're absolutely right. Yeah. Um, my ideology got the best of me early on, years ago, thinking that everybody would see exactly what I saw, like as fast as I saw it. And that's a silly thing to believe. But yeah, there's never
Well,
been a better
I,
time.
I
That
think
was,
I think the rabbit hole is a one-way door. Um, you can't unsee once you peer and you begin to peel back the layers and understand Bitcoin. But it takes time for everyone to go down that journey and see that the way our systems work and how much better it is to use and accept Bitcoin and the freedom and empowerment and all of that.
yeah,
But yeah, it definitely takes a lot of time. We're early, and we have a long time horizon as Bitcoiners, so that's okay.
that's right. Yeah. If you're a business on the edge, hey, just start accepting it. You'll get, there's still 100x left in this thing, I think, so
That's
in
right.
the next decade. So,
Yeah,
hey, get those VC level returns for selling a cup of coffee, let's get it.
100%. Michael, thank you so much for joining us, my friend. This was amazing.
Thank you all. Yeah, it's been great. A lot of fun.
Cool.
That was awesome. Thank you.